Begins in a dark and devastating place dominated by shadows and abysses. Soon we see that a young man appears to be gravely wounded in his chest. With a slight smile on his face, the brave hero seems to fight for his life. But we soon realize that this smile belongs to an audacious young man. Even with his face marked by countless wounds, he decides to face whatever is hurting him. In the midst of that destruction, an unnameable creature emerges, a terrible figure with a female body, but possessing diabolical powers. This faceless creature stares at our brave hero with a unique and terrifying gaze. Her body is covered with numerous limbs and each arm seems to wield a different weapon. Without hesitation, the evil creature decides to confront our protagonist, and her attack power seems to be grand and tremendous. However, our brave blue-eyed warrior is ready to face any challenge. Chaos is near, and it seems the entire universe depends on this fighter. Yet, before we can discover how this battle will end, letters begin to appear. It looks more like the ending of any random adventure book. And to our surprise, it really was an adventure book. Our protagonist is lying in bed and is just an ordinary boy who seems to have finished yet another novel on his phone. After taking a deep breath, Chang Ting, our teenager, realizes that the story he was reading has really come to an end. Impatient, he scrolls through his tablet to check that the story is truly over, and confirms that it is. More than that, furious that the adventure has ended, the teenager throws the tablet on the bed, very irritated. While taking his first morning pee, an alert pops up on his tablet, but he doesn't see it. It seems our adventure in this magical world is just beginning. Hours pass, and the next day the sky is blue, showing that a new moment has begun. Chang Ting appears quite well dressed with his stylish clothes as he approaches the entrance of his school. Our protagonist shows deep irritation because some commotion is taking place in front of his school, and he immediately thinks it's a protest. However, our blue-eyed teenager realizes he must be mistaken. To his surprise, as he approaches the crowd, he notices that an entire building has disappeared. Ting starts sweating cold as he cannot believe what his eyes are showing. There was supposed to be a huge building in front of him. Emptiness takes over the environment, and what seemed like a normal day in that teenager's life takes on alarming proportions. While Chang Ting is paralyzed trying to understand what happened, he realizes the crowd around him is starting to panic. However, the young man is a rational thinker and tries to stay logical. Perhaps a new demolition company is conducting some tests. Walking slowly, the teenager reaches his school and heads toward room number 16. As he opens the door, Chang is brutally surprised by an unrecognizable creature that jumps in front of him. However, to our surprise, is not some terrible creature, but just Ting's blonde friend. In desperation, his friend starts theorizing about the possible end of the world approaching. Nevertheless, even with the blondie's desperation, Chang Ting tries to stay calm and gets annoyed with the boy. Full of enthusiasm, Ting's crazy friend starts showing him that everyone is talking about this on social media. Starting to feel uncomfortable, Chang Ting scratches his head, telling his friend it must be a coincidence. With an evil look, the crazy friend asks if he has never heard about the end of the world in various books. It seems the end of the world is indeed near. In a quick flash of consciousness, a teenager tries to argue, but words fail him at that moment. Full of sarcasm, Ting's friend complains that even at the end of the world, he pulls out the tablet to read the novel. When he grabs the device, the young man reads a frightening message informing him that the book he was reading has been deleted. However, this was no ordinary book. It was a book that spoke about this possible end of the world. Both realize that the book also has a moment where the protagonists talk about the end of the world. It is at this moment that Chang Ting's world seems to collapse and fiction starts turning into reality. Leaving through the school corridors, he makes up some excuse to shake off his friend. His friend cries when he realizes he'll miss his buddy. Running through the city streets, our hero starts remembering that in the book he read, there was a portal that led to another dimension. Time is running out, and Ting needs to be fast if he wants to prevent a catastrophe. Fearlessly, the teenager runs among the people who seem to be living their lives normally. It was right there in front of his eyes, a portal with the number 1. With heavy breathing, an old man appears to say something to him. After arriving at the place indicated in the book, the boy tries to remember how this was supposed to happen in the story he read. Quickly, he remembers that there were a total of 999 portals connected to a terrible spatial abyss. And as described in the book, today at midnight, terrible beings from the abyss of darkness will invade the earth. Monstrous and horrifying creatures will come to life, indescribable and terrifyingly strong beings, and terror will take over the universe. Terrible monsters of different levels will invade the planet, and even those who are strong won't be able to stop them. In the book, with the arrival of the terrifying monsters, there was only one path to salvation. An order of defenders against evil would be able to join forces to save humanity. It was the only chance. The first beings to appear would be level 1 monsters, terrible, destructive wolves that devour everything. Chang Ting tries to think if he would be strong enough to do something like the protagonist of his book. He remembered well that level 2 monsters would be unimaginable aquatic beings. Even without knowing if things would happen the same way as in the book, Ting seemed to feel strong enough for the fight. Our hero decides to gather what he has to buy some things he will need. It won't be easy at all to fight a monster, so he will need some tools. A girl passes by him and realizes she knows the boy from school. Someone very angry starts yelling at her over the phone and tells her to go home immediately. Without thinking twice, the girl, who should be in class, agrees and ends up leaving Chang Ting for another time. Meanwhile, our boy is using his intelligence to build an incredible armor. With the tools he bought at the store, he builds something that is looking really cool. Looking at a gigantic spear, the young man realizes he is nervous and that he will need courage if he wants to face the creatures. Night falls, and with it comes the hope that everything will happen as in the book. However, even as midnight approaches, the place seems empty. There are only 20 minutes left until the time mentioned in the book, and our boy is ready to wipe out the enemy race. Looking closely at the clock, he realizes that the time has come and he will need a lot of courage. 3, 2, 1. The time for battle has arrived. And just like in the book, Ting realizes that the portal is open and no one is safe. Terrible beings from the abyss emerge to attack the boy. As predicted, the portal opened, and now it is time for humanity to face the consequences. A terrible sidereal light shines, showing that things will be far grander than they were in the story. However, to his misfortune, it is not just one light, but several red lights that take over the entire city. Widening his eyes, he realizes this is no joke. The time has come. In front of him appears a terrible wild creature that resembles a monstrous, beastly, and tremendously ferocious wolf. For the first time, our protagonist feels fear running through his veins, and it is truly a point of no return. The night becomes surrounded by darkness, and Chang Ting realizes that the wolf is indeed a creature from the depths of the abyss. As in the novel, the creature arrives thirsty for red juice and will do anything to destroy the hero. Trembling to his core, Ting tries to stay calm in front of that terrible animal. Focused, the beast with devouring eyes stares at our warrior, who also does not show insecurity. Before the young man could prepare, the terrible abyssal wolf charges ferociously at him. It is at this moment that the boy realizes this is not a game, it is reality, and the night beast is coming straight for him. Quickly, the warrior manages to dodge, and as the best defense is always attack, the brave one grabs his spear and prepares to face the wolf. Without thinking twice, Chang Ting thrusts his improvised spear into the beast's belly, which spittles all its filthy liquid into the air. The beast growls in desperation, trying to free itself from the spear, and the young man starts trembling, realizing what he has just done. Even trying to fight, the terrible abyssal wolf takes a deep breath and collapses in front of the boy, who wonders if he succeeded. The young man is scared because he realizes he is now entering an unexpected battle. However, a slight smile appears on his face. The end of the world is beginning. The young man finds it amusing because he realizes the terrible monster was no match for his talent. And before Ting could think, the ferocious animal starts staring at him. A terrible howl comes from the depths of the beast's soul as, with the spear still lodged in it, it cries out for help. However, something supernatural happens as if the young man had just finished a video game battle. A message appears in the universe stating that the young man has just become the #1 human for defeating the terrible wolf. At that moment, the young man realizes he has just achieved his first victory. Slowly analyzing the message that appears to him, the hero feels very accomplished. And soon after, he feels a glorious power rising from within himself. The ancestral spirit of the terrible wolf takes over his body. Fiercer and stronger, the young man now possesses new abilities after his first victory. The glorious power of the creature invades Chang Ting's soul, and he feels increasingly stronger. Now he is no longer just a curious young man, but a true warrior determined to save all of humanity. After his transformation, he has just received the alert that he has acquired within himself the soul of the lone wolf. Thus emerges a new champion filled with power, agility, and great reflexes. As it was written in the book, our protagonist has now received all the energy contained in the soul of a wolf. And without thinking twice, the young man starts testing his fantastic new abilities. Very powerful, he is ready to face whatever comes. With clenched fists, he strikes the concrete. Amazingly, his punch destroys everything in front of him. A superhero has just been born. But the young man is still frightened by the size of his current power. A mysterious artifact appears in front of him, one he knows very well is an abyssal seed. Throwing it down his throat, the protagonist tries to absorb the powers of that artifact. His pupil dilates as he realizes he has just acquired one of the greatest powers in existence. Fully empowered, he can feel all the blue magic within his soul. But all that power seems to cause him a kind of nausea as he is still getting used to all of this. He has just received another ability, the power to launch his swords quickly. It is at this moment that he realizes humanity depends on him. At the right time, Chang Ting will be able to use his entire new arsenal to save humanity from this supernatural attack. The next step now is to understand how things will unfold in the coming days. Back at the school building, all the students seem to be engaged in a terrible conversation. And before Ting could understand what was happening, his friend jumps on top of him. With no time for nonsense, the young man dodges the boy who ends up crashing to the ground. The blonde friend noticed that something had changed about the boy. To prove he was right, his friend starts pointing out that the news about monsters has spread. Indeed, they seem to be facing a terrible apocalyptic attack that will culminate in the end of the world. Showing his tablet, the boy states that several people are posting that whoever kills the creatures gains their powers. However, Chang Ting tries to fake a certain disinterest with his friend. He tries to show that he doesn't believe it, and soon his friend gets irritated. But the blonde friend keeps insisting that it is possible to gain superpowers from all of this. The young man ends the conversation by making it clear that he doesn't want to hear about it anymore, leaving his friend very surprised. The teacher enters the classroom and starts asking the students to stop spreading false rumors about the end of the world. However, Ting, knowing very well what he has experienced, states that in a few days they won't be able to call all this false rumors. His friend gets very irritated with what is happening. After a long day, the bell rings, putting everyone on alert. After the announcement, the teacher informs that class has finally ended. In a heavy atmosphere, Chang Ting's friend approaches and invites him to go to the sports court to talk more privately. The young man doesn't quite understand what is happening, but decides to follow his friend. Some other students also take the opportunity to hang out in the court. Without mincing words, Ting's friend starts a long interrogation. Realizing that the young man won't say anything about the events, he starts to cry. Continuing his drama, the blonde boy begins to fall into a crying crisis. He gets irritated and for the first time calls Takedo by his name, saying that he has things to say but that it requires secrecy. He complains to his friend, stating that he is indeed someone trustworthy. The teenager, now full of power, asks his friend to pay attention to what he will be able to do with just the tip of his finger. Simply by touching a piece of the staircase, it immediately crumbles like a cracker. The blonde nearly has a heart attack when he realizes that his friend has just broken a block of concrete with the tip of his fingers. And without further delay, Ting finally tells his friend the whole truth, making it clear that he has acquired new abilities. Takedo seems increasingly fascinated by his friend, especially when he realizes that those hands were the ones that defeated a wolf. While he was holding his friend's hand, the beautiful girl from the class looks at it suspiciously. Seeing that scene, the girl imagines that they are flirting. The young man tells his friend that in 3 days the monsters will attack the city again and that they need to be prepared. That young man needs to be ready to also gain the abilities of his friend. However, Chang Ting is increasingly clear in stating that this needs to be a secret between friends. Time passes slowly after that conversation. While walking back home, our hero keeps remembering that the next attack will happen far from there. He will need to prepare to face the terrible monster that resembles a giant ape. However, he must prepare because this monster's abilities are far superior. The next monster from the abyssal depths is a terrible gorilla. But if the young man follows the right steps, he will be able to defeat the creature and acquire new powers. Interrupting his thoughts, a woman appears in front of him. Looking closely, it could only be his aunt. The boy's aunt grabs him by the arm and calls him to have dinner at her house. The young man seems annoyed and asks if his uncle is at home at that moment. The boy's aunt, realizing what's going on, tells her nephew to calm down. Irritated, the young man thanks her for the concern but knows that now he can defend himself alone. Watching her nephew, she observes as he heads home, irritated. The young man's house is a complete mess, with bottles of alcohol scattered and leftover food everywhere. A red-haired kid talks about how Chang Ting is not at home. The boy's father, who apparently is his uncle, mocks him while drinking something. That drunk is claiming to be the owner of the house that actually belongs to the young man. Without warning, the hero delivers a powerful kick to the door, scaring the two scoundrels. Irritated and exuding all his power, Ting gets angry at seeing his uncle in that condition. His mischievous cousin gets up trying to defend his father. However, it only took the drunk father to raise his hand to silence him. His weird uncle approaches the young man trying to calm the situation. Getting close to the boy, he says that since he is about to go to college, he should look for a place to live on his own. Pointing a check in the boy's face, his scoundrel uncle tries to bribe him to leave the house. And before the young man can answer, his bratty cousin butts into the negotiation. Knowing he has enough power to defeat these fools, Ting tries to warn them that they are the ones who should leave. Realizing he is being threatened, his uncle gets furious at the nephew's boldness. Trying to stay calm, the young man starts throwing in their faces that they never helped his parents. They never helped when his parents needed money for the hospital the most. Trying to flip the situation, the boy's uncle starts threatening, claiming that he actually has rights to that house. Seizing the moment, the mischievous cousin throws in Chang Ting's face that he doesn't have parents to defend him. Going beyond the threats, the red-haired cousin even calls our brave hero a dog. Trying to hold back all this power, the young man tells his cousin to shut up and take back what he just said. However, not knowing he's talking to his superhero, the scoundrel keeps mocking. Not only him, but that bastard of an uncle also keeps making jokes. Unaware of the young man's strength, the cousin challenges him to a duel, saying he's going to beat him until he's purple. And before they could prepare, the teenager clenches his fist and smashes the face of his damn uncle. Taking the boy's punch, his body flies toward the ground, leaving his cousin terrified. "Bastard," he shouts, holding a glass bottle to smash it over Chang's head. But he is quickly surprised by a beautiful kick straight to the stomach. Without holding back, our champion makes sure to teach that brat a lesson. With his whole body shaking, the mischievous little cousin writhes in pain while cursing the boy. Having no patience for all that conversation, the young man decides to leave that place and go straight to his room. Getting up from the floor, both the uncle and cousin are now crying in pain, having been seriously beaten by the boy. However, he has more serious problems to solve. He needs to pack his things because the next attack is near. Nevertheless, he makes it clear that he will avenge the memory of his parents no matter what. Walking past the scoundrels with a suitcase in hand, he soon catches the intruder's attention. Announcing that he's leaving, the young man warns that they will have 3 days to make a decision. With their hands where they were attacked, both get more and more nervous. His face was still swollen from the blow, and he wondered if the boy was actually giving up the house. Now it's the cousin who is getting irritated and thirsty for revenge. Far from there, he arrives at a very beautiful place that looks like a hotel. Approaching the receptionist, the young man says he wants a room for the next 2 nights. With a seductive look, a girl offers him something more than just lodging, like a private massage. Embarrassed by the proposal he received, he starts wondering if that hotel is the right place for a student. Appearing nervous, the receptionist tries to touch his skin. Quickly, the boy pulls his hand away since he wasn't expecting that, and the girl understands and gives him the room number. From the window, we can see that it is an apparently promiscuous environment. With heavy breathing, we see that the boy is focused on something. In the next scene, a girl seems to be making funny noises. But before you think anything inappropriate, he was hearing noises coming from the room next door. Apparently, that wasn't an appropriate hotel for a young man his age. But now there was no turning back. However, the noise coming from the room next door was becoming increasingly unbearable. Inside room 210, we see that there are more people annoyed by the noise. 2 women are complaining that they have to endure that racket for a greater purpose. However, Sakura-sama, the girl with pink hair, is increasingly irritated by what she hears. Annoyed with the situation, the young Sama interrogates Mio, the woman with short white hair. Appearing more experienced, Mio starts advising the girl that she needs to take a deep breath. However, it seems Sama gets irritated with the woman's advice. Mio gives a slight smile, saying there's not much to be done about this situation. Looking into the distance, the white-haired woman can only think about the end of the world and the monster invasion. Now she looks firmly at Sama and says that she will need to be strong. The girl nods, saying she can handle it. Then breathe for 10 seconds, girl. However, the young Sakura-sama gets irritated again by how calmly Mio handles things. 2 days pass and we see that it's already dark and midnight is approaching. We see that Ting is with his friend at the place where things will happen. The young man is confident that this is where the creatures will appear. Takedo takes a deep breath and asks if his friend is confident that he can defeat the terrible beings of darkness. The cowardly friend quickly states that if anything dangerous happens, he will run away, but our hero assures him he can handle it. Seeing that situation, the young man wonders how they are still friends. Pulling out his glowing device, the young man confirms that there are exactly 30 minutes left until the attack. At that moment, the hero remembers how everything is supposed to happen according to the book. However, to the boy's surprise, something unexpected happens. Chang Ting grabs his friend by the neck and tries to hide from something that is about to arrive. Right before his eyes appear the 2 girls from the hotel, and he immediately recognizes Sama. Looking firmly at them, the young man cannot believe what he's seeing since they weren't in the book. Not understanding what is happening, the friends start wondering why they would be there. Taking a deep breath, the boy tries to find an answer and quickly realizes that they are also looking for the abyssal monsters. Looking at each other, both Mio and Sakura-sama prepare themselves to face the challenge. After thinking hard, Takedo remembers that the girl's family is known for being part of the special police. Something told him that they were there to handle some secret police mission. But if those girls stay there, the young Chang Ting won't be able to accomplish his long-awaited and dreamed-of mission. Arriving at the marked spot with the number 2, the young woman wonders if that's where the monsters will appear. Mio approaches the mark left on the ground and states that dangerous things will come as soon as the clock strikes midnight. However, it's necessary to stay on constant alert because the monsters that will emerge from there do not resemble those from the real world. Holding a massive bomb, Mio is more than ready to face these creatures of darkness. And for you, a pistol with great caliber. Hold it tight and blow the monster's brains out. Sakura-sama seems to handle that pistol very well, and with fire in her eyes, she appears ready for combat. From the top of the court, the friends watch all that mess without really understanding what's going on. Taking a deep breath and trying to stay calm, Ting advises his friend. A terrible smoke starts to take over the area, and the warrior Mio seems ready. From afar, the young man watches everything that's happening and finds it strange that they are using a bomb as a weapon. They still don't know, but the first monster that will appear will be much more violent. But if anything happens, he would be here to protect them. The clock is approaching the set time, and along with it, the bomb's timer is armed. The countdown begins from the girl's mouth. When the clock struck midnight, both Sakura-sama and Mio were ready to face the danger. A terrible curse is conjured at that place, and sinister forces emerge before everyone. The portal opens, and incredibly, the entire environment turns into cosmic horror. Before anyone can prepare, two creatures from the depths of the abyss appear. With a smile on his face, the young man curses at the girls for not being prepared for the monster's attack. Quickly, the incredible Mio grabs the bomb's remote and, without thinking much, presses the button. A massive explosion occurs, causing all the building's foundations to shake immediately. The intergalactic dust fills the area, and the two girls can finally celebrate. But it seems it's still too early to smile. In an attack position, the two join forces to face the creature that is still alive. It seems that only the first monster was defeated with a bomb explosion. The other terrible being, seeing that it must destroy those cursed ones, charges, thirsty for human flesh. What it didn't expect was that the warrior Mio was ready for combat. With her powerful laser weapon, the girl shoots at the dangerous creature. Before they can see the result of the shot, they decide to flee from that unhealthy place. The terrible beast decides to attack the girls without any mercy. Throwing a massive punch, it barely misses hitting our warrior's face. The creature looks at the ground and notices a gigantic rock that can be used as an attack weapon. And without thinking twice, it hurls that heavy concrete block toward the girls. Mio is hit hard in the back and ends up falling to the ground, begging Sakura-sama to run because she doesn't know she can hold on. At that moment, the young Sama looks into Mio's eyes and begs her to get up. The young girl then witnesses when that terrible beast stands imposingly and raises its fist. Knowing the pain she will face, the white-haired girl cries out for mercy. Immediately, the pink-haired girl quickly closes her eyes because she doesn't want to see her friend crushed. A deafening noise fills the environment, and unexpectedly, our savior appears, cruelly attacking that terrible beast. Smashed against the wall, the fearsome gorilla is left unconscious for a few moments. Strong and powerful, the young hero stands in front of the girl, making it clear that he will do anything to protect her. His hands are trembling because this one really hurt. With tears in her eyes, the young girl shows all her pain. Before she could look at Mio's body, she quickly realizes that she is okay and that this was not the end for her. Knowing that the beast can get up at any moment, the hero warns that the two girls need to leave. At that moment, the girl realizes she recognizes the boy from school and asks what he is doing there. However, much more important than knowing his reasons is getting out of there immediately. At that moment, the abominable creature rises from the shadows and launches a deadly blow against our hero. It seems that the giant ape is ready to unleash all its hateful power against Chang Ting. What it didn't expect was for the brave one to grab his furry fist with all his strength. Focusing to use all his attack power, the champion lets out a scream of rage. And then we see the terrible beast being launched once again against the construction walls. However, the boy's strength is starting to fade, and his attack power is becoming equal to the gorilla's. But this has a time limit, and he pulls out his secret weapon. The giant beast stares at our legendary fighter, believing it can devour him. Our hero leaps with his sharp spear to destroy the fearsome predator. Before the beast could defend itself, the young man tears the gorilla's skin with a fatal strike, causing juice to gush everywhere. With nothing else to do, the creature moans in pain from receiving that powerful attack. That blow was so strong that the beast's rotten body started spilling an infectious nectar and its power was dissipated. And as our warrior expected, a message appears before him congratulating him for the attack. As the beast lost all its power, the young man began to be rewarded for the glorious attack. A new ability seems to have been immediately unlocked after the bloody strike. Both Sakura-sama and Mio, upon seeing this, are immediately surprised. As the boy expected, everything is happening exactly as stated in the book. Increasingly proud of his work, the boy strikes a beautiful pose to receive praise. He just didn't expect that loudmouth Takeda would start complaining. Annoyed by that, Chang Ting makes a huge jump toward his friend. Grabbing the cowardly blonde by the neck, the boy suddenly has an idea. Remembering their deal, Ting wants his friend to gain new abilities as well. But before the cowardly friend could gather the courage, they hear a noise. Those girls were still there even after almost ruining their plans. Walking toward the two, they thank them for saving Sama, but remind them that the monster. Immediately, he cuts off the lecture to make it clear that it doesn't matter what she's going to say about the monster. However, Mio seems adamant about negotiating over the monster's body. Trembling with fear and trying to avoid any kind of conflict, Takedo tries to calm the situation. To shut the boy up, the young man offers him his powerful weapon. Now it's time for his friend to fulfill his part of the deal. Without thinking too much, the young man pierces a monster's skin. As expected, the boy, who until then was a coward, has just gained new abilities. Terrified of being attacked, the skinny guy screams to make sure the monster won't move again. With no patience for his friend, Chang Ting complains for him to finish the job once and for all. Now Sakura-sama has realized they won't gain anything from this, and Mio threatens our hero, declaring vengeance. Mio bids farewell to that situation, uttering words of hatred against the boy. Now that he's more powerful, the young man can only find those threats at least amusing. Before leaving, the girl declares that Sama's family is involved in a powerful project in that city, but the boy can't give an answer to the invitation and decides to think about it. Mio thanks him for the attention and says that if he needs anything, he should contact Sakura-sama. As the girls leave, the young man takes a deep breath, feeling relieved after such a long day. Now it's time for Chang Ting to devour that seed. Quickly, the young man swallows that powerful gem without knowing that he would immediately feel the power radiating through his body. Now he has become much more powerful than before. Moving his arms, he immediately starts feeling stronger. His strength is really increasing and it feels amazing. At that moment, his friend starts realizing that things are really getting serious. With his sweet and spontaneous way, the young man tries to calm his partner. Besides, he also says that the tool that appeared will help a lot. And we soon realize that that slingshot will be capable of hurting monsters. Smiling, his friend Chang Ting realizes that the stats are excellent. Reflecting for a moment, Takedo thinks before speaking. Feeling safer with a pistol, the young man says that now he feels smarter. The truth is, he can only be grateful to his friend. Hugging each other, the friends head back to the hotel. Far from there, the girls are now in the car, and Meo apologizes to Sakura-sama for failing. The white-haired girl is determined to take a different approach. Clicking on her communicator, she speaks the name of our protagonist, destined to take revenge for what he did. Far from them, back at the luxurious hotel. The discomfort between the friends is only growing as they hear the noises coming from the room next door. Takedo, increasingly uncomfortable, asks his friend if it's really necessary to stay in that noisy room. Raising his hand to his friend, he says that he actually has a little money with him. Chang Ting replies that he has a little more money, but soon money will start to lose its meaning. The blonde friend looks at him with that mischievous look. And already knowing where this is going, the young man says that he's not going to let him use the phone to order whatever he's thinking. Embarrassed, the blonde insists that he didn't say anything and wasn't even thinking about it. Someone knocks on the door, shouting room service. Regardless of anything else, Chang Ting is starving, and it's time to eat. As he grabs the delivery, he checks out who came to drop it at his room. A gorgeous woman looks at him with a bold look, clearly wanting something more. Even from afar, that sweetheart drops some sweet words to the boy. A little embarrassed, the boy finds it cute and gets all giddy. Returning to the room, he takes a deep breath. While eating their meal, the young man remembers that tomorrow morning the sun will disappear before everyone's eyes. At that moment, a green light will shoot toward the planet, and everyone will call it the Emerald Sun. As the Emerald Sun rises, the entire planet will turn green, and a voice will announce that Earth now belongs to the abyssal underworld. The world leaders will realize that the problem is serious and will look for ways to intervene in this situation. At this moment, when portals number 3 and 4 appear, humanity will be gaining more abilities. Meanwhile, humanity will create special forces to contain the advance. Scientists from around the world will try to contain and study the abyssal forces. However, as time progresses, the abyssal creatures will become increasingly stronger and more dangerous. While finishing their meal, they wondered about being the strongest on Earth. Chewing his food, Chang Ting took the opportunity to reflect with his friend about being just one of the strongest. After realizing what he was saying, he became alert. Takedo realizes that he is among the 30 most powerful people on the planet and feels incredible about it. However, he soon notices that something is wrong with his friend, who remains in a terrible state of alert. Without saying goodbye to his friend, he quickly gets up from the table and runs off, saying he'll be back soon. At that moment, his friend becomes very curious to understand what is happening. Then he feels sad because he is not as powerful as his friend. When he arrives at the reception, Chang Ting asks about the girl he saw, and they confirm that she is not one of them. With a cigarette in her mouth, the receptionist says that she is an outsider who comes occasionally. Smiling slowly, she cannot say what the girl was doing there since she could earn much more somewhere else. That was exactly why the boy was looking for that woman. The woman thinks that somehow the young man might know who that mysterious person is. Without hesitation, the boy asks which room that woman is staying in. But due to hotel rules, the receptionist cannot give that information. At that moment, our hero pulls out a handsome sum of money and throws it on the table. Apparently, the receptionist's price was quite low, and she quickly gives him the woman's room number. Taking a deep breath, the boy decides to go to the woman's room to learn more about who she is. Pressing number 5, the elevator immediately starts going up to the desired floor. That world is filled with 12 people with super abilities. If he can gather all these 12, he will soon be able to join forces to stop the attacks against the city. It seems that in the book, they find the 12 thanks to the ability of a woman with the power of a scorpion. Her name is never mentioned in the book, but she was an important character because she had a specific tattoo. The Scorpion Woman was a powerful escort who mistreated her captives. As the boy noticed very well, that girl also had a similar tattoo. When he arrived at the indicated door, he immediately became nervous because there was a chance he was completely wrong. According to the book, that woman hated men, so he needed to be careful. After ringing the doorbell, he waited for the woman to appear. Immediately, she appeared before him wearing inappropriate clothes. Trying to speak sensually, the girl begins to tempt our hero. Chang Ting apologizes for the inconvenience and tries to handle the situation. Touching his face, the girl asks him to come into the apartment. Never having felt this before, our hero begins to feel tempted. Whispering in the young man's ear, she tries to convince him that you will really enjoy it. Gathering the courage to face that challenge, the young man takes a deep breath and starts running away from the situation. That woman stares at the boy fleeing and says there must be something wrong with him. Desperate, the boy begins to blame himself for what happened and tries to sleep to forget what occurred. After a good night's rest, a day begins and Takedo opens his eyes. Getting up from bed desperately, he asks his friend to let him sleep a little longer. However, our brave friend is already watching the window and informs him that there is only 1 minute left until the great tragedy happens. Remembering the prophecy, the young man jumps out of bed to witness the event involving the sun. Furious with what he sees, the young man cannot believe what is happening before his eyes. A terrible laser beam appears among the clouds, descending directly from the sky. The true end of the world has just begun. Immediately, the city streets start turning completely green. Some people can't see because of this terrible green light that invades the entire city. Some pedestrians quickly realize what is happening, and when looking at the sky, they notice that the sun is completely green. In an impressive and brutal way, the emerald light invades life on Earth, and now it is impossible to escape what is coming. That mysterious woman is walking in the middle of the street with those strange clothes and dying of sleep from the previous night. Something catches the woman's attention when she notices that the sun is literally green. Have you ever heard that some types of people end up developing new colors in their vision due to cancer-related diseases? That shade looks brilliantly beautiful to the woman who couldn't stop staring. Pouring over the earth, that color spread ineffably everywhere, and the woman's desire was to feel it. Immediately, the figure of a gigantic space scorpion took over the woman's vision. Radiating something sinister, it made her eyes become obsessed with that intergalactic being. When she realized it, she was lying on the ground without understanding what was happening. While receiving that macabre energy, the girl went into a terrible collapse and ended up collapsing on the sidewalk. Meanwhile, the friends were staring firmly at the apocalypse, unfolding before their eyes. However, a terrifying voice emerged from space, speaking to all humanity. That voice gained specific colors, and coming directly from space took over the entire Earth. As the unnameable form began to appear, terrible prophecies were cast against all humanity. It seems the Abyssal War is near, and this demonic figure is ready to play with life on Earth. Summoning the forces of the Abyssal World, that terrible creature is ready to unleash evil on Earth. From there, terrible, unnameable beings from the Abyss will emerge, thirsty to spread corruption across the world. While that monstrosity utters its terrible blasphemies, the girls listen to everything attentively. 999 portals will be opened, and from them, terrible monsters will come out to attack life on Earth. It seems that humanity may have some chance to fight, but it will be very difficult to face each monster. If humanity loses this battle, this terrible being will devour the remaining life that still exists on Earth. This creature is ready to play with humanity and witness corruption on Earth. After delivering the terrible prophecies, that being wishes everyone good luck and releases a terrifying light into the sky. Along with that light, the evil being disappears without leaving a trace. After the announcement, Takedo is trembling with fear and nudges his friend. Indignant with what he just saw, young Takedo wonders if that was the announcement of the end of the world, because it seems that humanity has no salvation. Without knowing what to answer, Chang Ting prefers to stay silent rather than say something foolish. At this moment, the young man gathers strength to remember everything he saw in that damn book. And if he's right, terrible things are about to begin. Frightened by the way his friend speaks, Takedo starts interrogating the young man. Far from there, the true world leaders begin to discuss the future of humanity. An elder at the end of the table decides to stand up and says that Earth is about to become a playground in the hands of those creatures. However, another man from the armed forces claims that it is necessary to destroy those filthy creatures. It seems the situation is really serious, and they are willing to sacrifice civilians. At this moment, another man stands up and begins to protest, saying that we are truly doomed. His name is Itsu Yuda, and he wants to make it clear that none of those present know who they are dealing with. Leader Matsumoto Kao gets irritated with this guy's slowness. At that moment, Mr. Yuda proposes the idea of creating a super squad to defend the Earth. Staring firmly at the other participants, the older man says it's not a bad idea, but he doesn't know how to recruit those people. In fact, people are very terrified of the abyssal monsters, and it's time to look for a path to peace. Everyone agrees with the statement about world peace. Far from there, our hero already knows very well that the government will try to implement a super squad. But Takedo, with all his lucidity, wonders how they are going to enlist. Looking firmly at his friend, Chang Ting states that they will have to fight to prove their worth. It seems that in the book, the protagonist ended up losing his freedom and the chance to join the team. However, at this moment, it is not the time to put his freedom at risk. It is necessary to help save the world. But the young friend still wonders how they will be able to do that. At this first moment, the young man will need to find some kind of job to support himself in the coming weeks. But even his own friend cannot understand because that would be his job. It's time to face Chang Ting's drunk uncle. After hearing that, the young man is already preparing for what he is about to face. Stating that his friend is getting angrier and angrier, Takedo tries to remind him that they are heroes, not villains. It seems our protagonist knows that very well, but he is willing to take revenge and be brave in his own way. The fools are completely terrified that when they manage to get the house, this abyssal attack happens. And it seems the cousin suspects that the young man knew very well what he was doing. Even with the world ending, that drunkard only cares about enjoying the moment. A noise arises without them noticing. At that moment, the uncle already realizes what's happening, and it's clearly the bastard nephew. Before he can scream for help, he sees his son splatter against the wall. Yes, he has just been brutally attacked. It happened so quickly that he didn't even have time to think when he saw the nephew in front of him. Without moving a muscle, Chang Ting states that he will be next. Realizing that the boy has just committed a crime, the uncle threatens him, saying that he's a murderer, and the young man replies that he knows that very well. Desperate and begging for his life, that filthy uncle starts appealing to family ties. However, it seems the young man doesn't care about any of those disgusting excuses. With all the hatred in the world, the young man yells at his uncle, saying he is the one responsible for all the bad things that happened to him. Getting closer and closer to the uncle, Ting is ready to commit his greatest revenge of all time. Begging for mercy, the uncle asks the nephew to stop and forget everything that happened. Drawing his sword, the young man is prepared to put an end to it all once and for all. But before he finishes the matter, his uncle screams, saying he knows who killed Mi-san. That hits the young man like a punch to the face. He wasn't expecting that information. Afraid the nephew didn't hear, the uncle makes it clear that he knows who killed the boy's mother. Growing even more furious, the boy's eyes spark as he demands to know once and for all who was responsible. Begging for mercy, he claims it was the nephew of some Chief Katu, who was driving drunk and hit his mother. Desperate for more answers, the young man asks how that bastard knew this. One time, while they were drinking together, the chief confessed it to him in secret. At that moment, he realizes why the police never investigated his mother's death. Now that he has confessed everything, he begs for mercy not to be killed. As the uncle was about to leave, he thanks the nephew. However, it seems it was already too late, and he feels something strange happen. In a terrible manner, Chang Ting's sword ends up piercing his chest. It seems the strike is precise and fatal. Celebrating his deed, the young man carefully analyzes his equipment and seems very proud of what he has just done. However, at that exact moment, his friend shows up at his house and is surprised by what he sees. In his defense, the young man states that soon many people will die anyway. Now they need to prepare for the next 2 weeks. Putting their backpacks on, they seem ready for a new journey. Looking at each other, they trust that they are ready for this new challenge. Greeting each other, they confirm that it is time to fight. Soon, 2 weeks pass, and Mayo and Sakura-sama are talking in the car. The apocalypse is coming, and they continue discussing the next steps. Sama seems a bit uncomfortable with all of this. Looking firmly at the road, they seem to have seen something terrible. Their car accelerates immediately, making a loud noise. At that moment, we see a tall, handsome guy startled by everything that is happening. Unafraid of what might happen, the girls promptly stop the car quickly. Opening the doors rapidly, the two jump out of the vehicle and head toward the mysterious, handsome man. With a smile on his face, the charming guy greets them and says that finally the two have arrived. In a complete state of anger, it can only look at the guy with disdain. In an epiphany moment, Sakura-sama seems to remember something. At that moment, we realize that the handsome guy is none other than the former coward Asahi Takedo. It seems that the abilities acquired also changed the young man's appearance, who is now more attractive. Even though that was impressive, Sama Mio says she had heard about it before, but it's still surprising. Out of absolutely nowhere, a heavy backpack appears, as if someone threw it into the air. Without anyone expecting it, the heavy backpack ends up falling on Takedo, who is immediately disoriented. Even more charming than before, the young Chang Ting catches his friend's attention and tells him to get into the girl's car. Before they even invite him, our hero adjusts the back seat and starts getting into the vehicle. All this charm from the young man continues to impress his friend's eyes. Before an awkward silence fills the car, the skilled driver starts making conversation with the brave one. From what the boy knows, the third and dangerous portal will appear in a city park. Then it was time for the four of them to head to that location. When the clock was about to strike midnight, they were arriving at the place. As they approached the portal, they saw the number 3 stamped on the ground. Even knowing they would find the location, the girl was still scared to see that the young man was actually right. Liking what he heard, the young man asked to receive more compliments when there are other people around. But the truth is that the girl wasn't in the mood to boost the boy's ego any further. Now it's time to put distractions aside because in less than 30 minutes the third portal will open. Unashamed of being pathetic, the blonde friend asks to receive the next ability the portal provides. But he's quickly interrupted by his friend so he doesn't mess everything up with his clumsiness. As midnight strikes, it doesn't take long for the portal to open and from it emerge horrendous creatures. Knowing very well what awaits, the young man warns everyone to get ready. This time, both Mayo and Sama were in a total state of alert. From the middle of nowhere, a malicious and slimy being began to take shape, and it was very disgusting to see. However, to Takedo's surprise, the slimy creature was much bigger than he was expecting. Knowing his friend's terrible track record, Chang Ting asks him not to screw up. Starting to prepare, the duo tries to remember the plan they made. This terrible slimy monster is much more dangerous because it has tentacles that release lethal acid. Following the plan, our duo decides to start the attack with Takedo shooting one of the tentacles so his friend can engage. Realizing he is about to be attacked, the terrible creature becomes more imposing and aggressive toward the two. At first, the young man gets nervous and finds it all way too scary. Knowing his friend's personality, our hero tries to encourage him. Rising even more, the abyssal creature doesn't wait long and starts attacking our duo. Its terrible tentacles take an assertive position against Takedo and his pistol. Staring firmly at the monster, the young man tries to concentrate intensely. Spending all his focus, he fires, making it clear that this attack is for world peace. His skill is incredible because he managed to shoot right at the tentacles as planned earlier. At that moment, it was time for our champion to step into action. Running immediately toward the creature, Chang Ting jumps. Shouting at the creature, the young man leaps in an attacking motion. His powerful and sharp sword manages to tear a good piece of that filthy creature. It seems that was the weak point of the sticky being, which starts melting before their eyes. Staring at the scene, the two girls ask if they finally managed to finish off the monster. After checking that they did, the young man throws his weapon to Sama to finish the job. With all of her strength, the girl drives the spear into that gelatinous body. However, in a sudden alert, Takedo lets out a gigantic scream toward his friends. No one understands anything, and they all start questioning each other. But before he could explain the reason for the scream, a huge explosion happened in their direction. Carrying Sakura-sama in his arms, our hero tries to understand what's happening now. A deep male voice arises, saying that the attack was great. That bastard who appears claims he was going to kill them, but this time will let them run away. This creature is mine, he states shamelessly. The four friends stare at that filthy man approaching the monster they defeated. But our victorious one will not let this slide as he looks with pure hatred at that bully. Irritated by what is happening, Chang Ting asks how he knew about this place. Mio, sweating cold, says the information must have leaked. However, that damn scumbag tries to joke about the situation. More impressive than anything is that in the book, this didn't happen this way, and it is scaring our hero. It seems the story is adjusting to new times and events. Unafraid to face the boy, that bully gets closer and closer. Seeing that our hero was completely paralyzed, that jerk taunts the young man even more. Breathing deeply, the boy tries to stay calm in that situation. Seeing that Chang Ting is trying to take a deep breath, the guy asks why he is doing that. Gripping his fist, the boy states that he is preparing for the right moment to end his kind. That immediately puts the bully on high alert. Before he could think, our hero raises his fist and tries to attack him. However, contrary to what the young man expected, that bastard managed to quickly defend himself, which surprised him. Giving a wide smile, the scumbag says it was a nice hit. At that moment, realizing it's going to be a tough duel, the young man starts adjusting himself. Shouting to his friend, the duo tries a surprise attack. Without mercy for the bully, Takedo fires countless golden bullets at that unfortunate guy. But before they could predict it, the powerful stranger raises his hands in front of the bullets and manages to defend himself. Bragging about his defense, he says he couldn't imagine that two kids would know how to fight so well. But the guy won't let that threat go unpunished. With that, the boy shouted, putting even more power into his shots, which came out like fire bullets. Wearing a malicious smile, that filthy man says it won't be any trouble. To the villain's surprise, the boy manages to hit his fire rays toward the magic orbs he was using. In addition, Takedo precisely hits the arm of that arrogant bastard. Not imagining he would be wounded by those kids, the stranger becomes very furious. After realizing he managed to attack that bastard, the young man feels very proud. But the bully wouldn't let it end that way and soon charges toward the boys. Running past Chang Ting, the guy keeps running even faster. At that moment, he stops in front of the blonde with those bright and fierce eyes. With all his strength, the guy clenches his fist and immediately punches Takedo in the face as he tries to defend. However, the stranger's attack power is too strong, and at that moment, the boy's body flies at high speed. Seeing his friend was hurt, our hero cries out his name. Raising his fist toward the bully, Chang Ting also clenches his hand, ready to smash that bastard in a fight. However, he is immediately stopped by the man's hand, who quickly grabs his face. Before our brave one could launch his attack, the violent stranger slams the young man's face into the ground. For the first time, Ting faced an enemy at his level, and it caused him pain. With violet flames in his eyes, the bully raises his arm to attack the boy once more. He even tries to lift his fist to defend himself, but that attack power is way too strong. Unafraid of the consequences, the guy manages to crush the boy's face, causing him deep pain. That pain takes over the boy's whole body, who doesn't know what to do under such an onslaught. Smiling maliciously, the villain believes this is already a won battle. Without mercy to end the boy's existence, the bastard continues smashing his face. It seems to be a lost fight, and the girls are very afraid of what will happen. Raising her weapon against the stranger, Mio tries to defend her friend. But before she could fire, the coward throws a terrible blow at the girl, who has no power. Still holding the spear in her hands, Sakura-sama really wants to attack, but is warned not to do anything. Seeing the chaos he just caused in the arena, the guy starts walking toward the creature. With a slight pain in his neck, he states that he will need to go to a hospital after that beating. However, before he gets close to the strange creature, he hears a voice right behind him. That scream was from none other than our hero, who still had the strength to fight. To the bastard's surprise, he doesn't even have time to defend. With a mighty punch, Chang Ting manages to surprise that scumbag, who flies through the air screaming in pain. His attack was so powerful and strong that the bastard's body kept flying farther and farther. Unconscious and not knowing where he was, the stranger could only moan from so much pain. With trembling hands, Ting could only take a deep breath, but his entire body was aching. Finding strength where there was none left, our brave one ran to try to help his friend. Lifting Takedo's body slowly and carefully, he began checking if everything was okay. It seems that after all that fight, the young man had seriously injured his fist. Our duo headed toward the monstrous creature to try to finish their mission. Before any new surprise appeared, Sakura-sama drew her spear and finished the creature right there. Knowing what needed to be done next, Chang Ting immediately ordered Sama to consume the abyssal seed. Levitating quickly, the girl's body begins to receive a glorious ability. Everyone keeps walking to leave that place, and it seems Mio is very injured. However, the most injured one remains that bastard scumbag who will think twice before messing with our heroes again. Trying to lift his body off the ground, the bastard realizes he is completely broken. Yet he still doesn't quite know where he is, much less his own name. Everything in his body hurts, and it will take a long time to recover from so much pain. Slowly getting up, the bastard begins to come to his senses. Cursing everything and everyone, he heads toward a house. Kicking the door aggressively, he arrives at the place screaming at everyone. To our surprise, it looks more like an evil headquarters, and there is that mysterious hottie. Another guy says he is surprised by the power of our brave heroes. Still recovering, the bully starts explaining to his allies that those kids are terribly powerful. However, the time has come for the League of Evil to take some action against our protagonists. Realizing that those guys want to join forces with the kids, the bully starts complaining. Trying to include the other woman in the conversation, he asks what she thinks and calls her Ibera. That makes the woman completely stressed because she has said 1,000,000 times that her name is now Scorpiana. Hearing that, the bully finds it funny that the woman wants to be called Scorpiana. But before he can continue his teasing, the woman launches a violent attack against him. With her magical fist close to the guy's throat, Scorpiana warns that this will be his last warning. Knowing his strength, the guy faces the woman and is ready to end her if she continues with that. However, the other partner is tired of all this nonsense and orders them to stop the quarrel. It's time to think of a way to continue with their secret mission. Looking firmly at the two, he states that if they don't stop, he will punish them in an infernal way. Both of them went on high alert, making it clear that the threat was really serious. Giving a slight nervous smile, Scorpiana asks the leader not to make that mean face and says it's all over now. The bully looks at the leader and is shocked because he knows that if the leader wants, he can become a real demon. To conclude the conversation, the guy says that Abera needs to come back there after 3 days. Knowing very well who's in charge, the girl who prefers to be called Scorpiana nods and says she'll do what was ordered. Far from there, we see a grand hospital. We soon realize that our heroes are there wanting to know how Maya is doing. After all, she's the only one without powers. According to the doctor, she fractured some bones, but soon she'll be fine again. Looking at our dear Takeko, the doctor says he also needs rest if he wants his arm to be back in place. Excited by the doctor's news, the crazy guy raises his arm to celebrate but quickly forgets that it's injured. A weird noise comes from inside the cast, and it seems that one really hurt. Our friend shuts up and stays silent so he doesn't scream from the intense pain he feels at that moment. Heading toward the exit, the doctor says goodbye to our heroes and informs them that if anything happens, just call him. Worried about how the last battle went, Sakura-sama tries to apologize to Chang Ting, who tells her not to worry. For Ting, the battle is not yet lost because he knows there will still be new chances for new abilities. This time, the young girl is more than determined and committed to facing the challenges and acquiring new powers. Raising the tip of her delicate and harmless fingers, Sama surprises everyone in the room with her new magical power. Not believing what they are seeing, Takedo looks at the girl's hands in awe as he asks what it is. For those who thought the girl had the ability to control fire, she smiles because her powers go far beyond that. Making a point to show all 4 elements in her hand, the girl gives a beautiful, mischievous smile. Once again, the emotional boy cannot contain his joy and is super excited for what's to come. Thinking carefully about what he is seeing, our protagonist remembers that in the book, this was actually possible. As far as he could remember, it was a young woman capable of facing any threat using the 5 elements. At this moment, even Sakura-sama herself is surprised by the amount of power and abilities she carries within her. Testing her powers well, the girl discovers that by using fire and water, she can launch attacks. By conjuring forest elements, she will be able to help heal her allies. But not only that, when used correctly, the earth element will serve as an excellent means of defense. By unleashing the power of metal, Sakura-sama will be able to launch powerful sharp spears. Showing his needy side, young Takeda reveals that he wishes he could do that too. Now that she knows she is a superheroine, the young girl reveals that she wants to talk to Chang Ting. Excited to hear what's coming, the young man agrees, saying he's all ears. Seeming to know something important, the girl reveals that the government is recruiting a big team of people with abilities. After revealing what she knows, Sakura-sama is firm in saying that she intends to join this new troop of fighters and invites the young man to go with her. However, as we already know, our invincible hero is not at all interested in being part of this team of government people. Noticing her friend's negative response, the girl tries to keep insisting because she knows that her friend's help will be extremely important. According to Sakura-sama, it would be very important to have her friend on the team since he would help with all the logistics of attacks by knowing things. However, in making Sama extremely sad, Chang Ting does not want to miss the chance to be an independent young man. There's not much to say at this moment because our brave one seems determined to pursue his solo career. After the young man makes his position clear, she seems to understand his side but makes a point of saying that he has her support. Taking advantage of this opening, the boy, who is completely broke, says he needs a bit of money. That somehow seems to please Sama because according to her, her family has plenty of spare money. Noticing that she's feeling proud, he takes the chance to ask for $1 billion, which leaves Takedo completely embarrassed. At that moment, he realizes he went too far and decides to correct his offer, asking for $5 million. Seeing that her friend is pushing the limits, the girl tries to scold him and tells him to be ashamed of himself. After the pointless speech, Sakura-sama says she has the money and that he just needs to give her his account number for her to make the payment. Taketo nearly has a heart attack when he realizes that the girl was actually serious and was going to send that money. Pulling his friend aside, Chang Ting starts saying goodbye, claiming that he will send the account number but needs to go. It seems he needs to go handle some problems. At that moment, his friend gets irritated because once again, he's making decisions without consulting him or asking for his opinion. At that moment, Sama starts wondering why young Chang Ting needs such a large amount of money. Far from there, the story continues in another scene of the hospital. From what his friend remembered, Ting had given a big speech about the monetary system collapsing, which makes him question his friend's request, who answers that they need to set up a mercenary organization, and that requires money. At that moment, Takedo gets super excited because knowing his friend will be the captain, obviously he will be the vice captain. First, our hero needs to go rest in the mountains, and second, if necessary, he will have to threaten someone. That worries his friend a lot because now he's starting to talk like he's a major villain. But what really matters is that they need to train to conquer the next abyssal seed. That sounds weird to Takedo, who stays silent for a few seconds. Letting out a loud scream, the young man panics near the hospital's escalator. Far from there, we see the training academy. But before anything else, it's already clear that the two friends are lying on the ground, extremely tired from fighting. On television, the reporter seems to announce that the world depends on the strength of the team that will face the enemies. According to the news, the security department is doing everything it can to gather a team of specialists to save the planet. Even tired from training, both Chang Ting and Takedo try to talk and plan the next steps of their adventure. It seems there's not much time left before our heroes face one of the biggest challenges of their lives, and the young man is already dreaming about that day. At that moment, young Ting gets up saying that time is very tight and the day of the battle is approaching. However, before he could finish his train of thought, the young man sees something evil forming right in front of him. The two friends jump toward the threat to try to defend themselves from the brutal attack. Unleashing all her hatred, the villain, Scorpiana, is determined to destroy our heroes with her demonic powers. However, just as she was about to unleash all her hatred, something unexpected happens. Immediately, the hottie remembers bumping into Chang Ting in the hotel hallways that day. Seeing that there was some kind of spark between them, Takedo asks if his friend knows that creature from somewhere. Throwing herself on the ground in a very daring way, the woman tries to seduce our favorites by asking for a little water. But before his friend could do anything stupid, Takedo jumps toward the place where the water is stored and hands a bottle to the woman. At that moment, something very unusual happens because the mischievous Scorpiana touches his hands. Noticing that his friend starts to weaken, the woman asks if he's going to stay quiet and if he has a girlfriend. Not only that, being even bolder, the shameless woman teases the boy even more. At this moment, the young man no longer knows what is right or wrong and is paralyzed by what is happening. Having no patience for those little games, Chang Ting complains, telling the woman to just spit out what's going on already. Before anything else, she introduces herself as the Scorpion Woman, belonging to the 12 Celestial Stars, a mysterious group of mercenaries. "That gorilla who attacked you is one of ours," she says with an evil smile. Realizing that this could be some kind of revenge, Takedo draws his weapon and threatens that damned woman. Calming down Ting's frightened friend, a woman says her real intention is to make them an offer. Before Chang Ting ruins everything, she touches her lips to signal him to stay quiet. According to her, her captain gave clear orders that if he interferes too much, she can kill him, so it's better for him to stay silent. But Takedo is not afraid of that threat. After all, she is just one and they are two. However, at that exact moment, something very strange starts happening to the young man. His head seems to throb in a weird way, the pain becomes unbearable, and he ends up collapsing to the ground. A terrible magic emerges on the young man's body, who feels something different and green taking over him. Ting watches all of this very alert as he has no idea what is happening, while the young man kneels before the Scorpion Woman with a deep headache that won't go away at all. Realizing she is in control of the situation, the woman starts throwing a series of nasty jokes at the young man. Now it's time for her to get the answer she's been wanting to hear. However, both he and his friend are in a complete state of despair. At that moment, a voice echoes from the back of the room, and it seems they are looking for the Scorpion Woman. Then 4 new characters enter our story, and apparently, one of them is quite bald. Not knowing how to react, the woman simply shouts a terrible curse word out of desperation. Not knowing what the hell is going on, our protagonist takes the opportunity to interrogate the woman, who explains who they are. That old bald guy calls her an old witch and seems very happy to have finally found the sorceress. But at this moment, our hero doesn't quite understand who these people are and what they want there. To sum up the story, they are a team that is constantly in conflict with her, and to make matters worse, she castrated that bastard. It was at that moment that the young man jumped up and almost choked on that disgusting information. In a puffed up manner, the team of Avengers is there just waiting to attack. Now the bald one seems more aggressive than before and is ready to strike. But our sorceress does not take those insults quietly and starts to further fuel the rage of the Nuthed. It seems he will not rest until he finishes the Scorpion Sorceress and is determined to do so. Conjuring her greenish power, the woman casts a powerful spell before everyone's eyes. At this moment, to gain even more power, she also lifted the curse cast on the 2 boys. Raising all of her strength at that moment, the woman stands before everyone and launches her powerful magic against those fools. This force was so great that it almost took the form of a terrible greenish dragon. But what she did not expect was that the friends also had a certain level of power, and the one holding a bat smiled. Facing the powerful witch's magic, the one holding the bat raised his weapon to defend the others. At that moment, the sorceress fell silent because that was supposed to work immediately, but he just laughed back. Meanwhile, the old bald guy kept spewing threats and insults at the Scorpion Woman. Things were literally not going as expected for the woman. Continuing the series of attacks, one of the kids unleashed a massive cosmic dust. His attack power was tremendous, and the sorcerer's body flew across the room like a sheet of paper. At the old man's signal to attack, their forces joined together before the sorceress to deliver a massive blow. However, before they could finish their attack, they heard a series of gunshots fired at them. It was our dear Takedo who, before they could move, made sure to unload his weapon on them. Not only that, but Chang Ting also jumped into the fight and even said that the Scorpion Woman would owe him a certain favor afterward. At this moment, the team becomes a bit desperate, as they are not sure they will survive the Du's attack. Without further ado, the gang leader declared that it was time to attack. Knowing they could escape, the Scorpion Woman shouted for the boys to stop them. However, the damned gang knew how to perform a certain type of magic. Before they could see, those bastards quickly and powerfully ran away from there. But at this moment, the sorceress became extremely furious because the 2 had let them escape. Taking a deep breath, the sorceress says that all of this was her fault. But what made her feel more relaxed was knowing that the 2 chosen to join the Celestial team were still alive. At this moment, with all his malice, our protagonist asks if she doesn't want to hear a proposal. Smiling immediately, she asks if he's suggesting that she should join them. Extending his hand, our hero smiles and confirms that the proposal is exactly that. That answer was so quick that she couldn't even believe what she was hearing. Always taking everything in a naughty way, she asks if they became interested in her. Noticing that she was already better, he asked if she was still injured. However, Takedo is already tired of the sorceress's dirty jokes, but she looks at him smiling, saying that it's natural for a beautiful woman to enchant men. Walking away in a sensual manner, she says they should consider her invitation. It seems that finally our protagonists can focus all their efforts on building their own faction. Now it's time for a good stretch, especially after such a tough fight like that. Realizing that he needs a break, Takedo asks how much time is left before the next monsters appear. Far from there, it seems our characters return to the big city. Walking through the crowd, Takedo seems to warn about a giant building by pointing his finger. A gigantic building catches the young man's attention, and he asks his friend to take a look. Reflecting very carefully on the friend's proposal, our hero thinks for a few moments. Soon after, Takedo pushes Chang Ting toward the large concrete building. Apparently, he really wants to know what it's like inside. Arriving at the place, which is full of police, they notice that there are many young people in the corridors. Before they could say anything, they are surprised by someone. A super elegant man appears and asks if they are there to be registered. Smiling awkwardly, Ting asks if he's talking about their abilities. Apparently, it's not necessary to have great abilities to participate. In fact, these abilities can be acquired. Bowing slightly, the elegant man introduces himself as Ki Ji-won and says he's responsible for Zone 6. That name sounds very familiar to our brave one. Slowly taking off his glasses, the man notices Chang Ting's immediate surprise. Trying to disguise the situation, the young man says that his name just sounds like that of a friend. According to the book, Ting reads, some people possess numerous important abilities. However, there was one among the characters who desired to dominate all other people with abilities. This being was described by the name Ki Ji-won, and during the end of the world, he would be of utmost importance. At the beginning of the story, the young man read, this man had a certain authority, but throughout the journey, he formed a group. At first, this man did not pose much risk, but over time, this changed and he became someone very dangerous. However, the most shocking part of his journey was when the great portal number 6 opened. At the end of the chapter where the man appears, he would have emerged victorious, but that was the true beginning of the end. After the victory in the book, as Ki Ji-won declared himself king for a certain period. However, his fate was already sealed when a certain group of mercenaries decided to attack him. In the end, his journey concluded with a death that would announce a new leader and a new era in history. The protagonist thinks it would be good to have the silver-haired guy on the team. He asks for a tour of the place and says that even without abilities, he wants to protect his nation. The other agrees and asks the heroes to follow him to the office for more information. A henchman in a cap tells the boss that the place is well protected and full of hidden people. The boss calms him down by saying he has only detected 3 ability users in that building. Meanwhile, the blonde villain asks if the target is already in his sights. Elsewhere in the city, there's a building far from the main area. A blonde man with an evil smile confirms and says he is ready to launch the attack. A countdown of 5 minutes begins, with 15 minutes in total to execute the mission. In the middle of the food court, someone shouts the name Roger. At the same time, the heroes are in the office being served tea. Their host comments that it is his favorite tea and smiles as he offers the cups. The protagonist thanks him but declines, saying they don't like tea. Commenting that the two are very cautious, the silver-haired figure decides to get straight to the point. With a serious expression, he asks what exactly they are looking for. Both are confused and do not immediately understand the question. The silver-haired figure states that they must be ability users and did not come to join. The next observation is that the protagonist clearly knows who he is talking to. The boy tries to ease the tension by saying that he just has the same name as a friend. Then comes the revelation that since childhood there has been a special intuition guiding that man. He sees things others don't notice and feels like he is standing before someone familiar. The strange thing is that he himself doesn't know who is in front of him. With a firm gaze, he asks who the visitor is and what he wants there. A strong sense of oppression leaves the boy in shock. Even so, he tries to explain that he understands the suspicion but assures that they are ordinary people. The other man says that there are truths that don't come through words and decides to send them for interrogation. Without warning, the heroes are transported to an unknown place. The silver-haired figure explains that this is a very advanced special device. Not even someone who defeated a level 3 abyssal seed could escape from it. At that moment, the conversation is interrupted by the shield being shattered before their eyes. Scared, he watches the boy who now stares firmly. Shaking his arm, the young man says that it might be true, but it's still not enough. With a precise strike, he completely destroys the magic shield. Our protagonist admits that he is an ability user, but hopes the other man will believe him anyway. He clarifies that he has no malicious intentions. The silver-haired man thinks that the kid's ability must be physical enhancement, at least level 4 or 5. Concluding, he says that he has no other choice but to believe him because if he wanted to cause harm, there would be no way to stop him. Laughing, the hero asks if he really looks like a bad guy. At that moment, there is a huge explosion behind the 3 characters. The protagonist quickly turns around, showing nervousness on his face. He and his friend quickly stand back to back to cover their blind spots. The silver-haired man grumbles, looking seriously at the situation. At that moment, he activates a secret device hidden in his clothes. Quickly, the silver-haired man delivers a kick using the device to protect them from the fire of the explosion. We see smoke covering the entire room, leaving the characters without visibility. Revealing himself in the smoke, the silver-haired man thinks that the protagonist has resistance to elemental attacks. Seeing our hero burn, he realizes that the boy is not completely immune to elemental attacks. Everyone becomes tense when they hear over the radio that the place is being attacked by enemies. The boy asks the silver-haired man to believe him this time because he will help him. Thinking, the man responds that the protagonist's eyes don't lie, and he chooses to believe him. The 3 run out of the room with the silver-haired man guiding them to the lobby on the 1st floor. We We see a building that looks simple, but suddenly several weapons come out of the windows pointing outward. The sniper villain complains about the quick response to the attacks and says he underestimated the enemy, but unfortunately, that alone won't be enough. With an evil smile and his sniper aimed with an energy beam, he says the target is ready and now he will destroy everything. The building is hit by the sniper's energized shots, causing massive destruction. After the shot, the villain informs his boss that he has successfully suppressed the enemies. Ordering his gang to move, the boss commands that they must continue the operation. Meanwhile, an employee exclaims that the building is under attack. We see the villains entering through the door and facing the building's guards. The boss asks if 1 minute is enough for his henchman to deal with them, and the henchman says he only needs 10 seconds. With a smile on his face, the boss starts a countdown. The henchman laughs, saying his boss really is meticulous. The building's ability users say that the villain's actions are considered terrorism and that they should surrender. The villain's countdown now has only 5 seconds left. At that moment, 3 heroes jump on the henchman. One of them exclaims in surprise, alerting that the villain has disappeared. At that moment, we see that the villain passed through the 3 heroes, spreading ketchup with his blade. Smiling, the henchman says it was exactly 10 seconds. The guards shout fire and shoot their weapons. At that moment, with some kind of psychic power, the evil boss stops the bullets in midair. A scared guard exclaims that the villain is a monster. Performing an elegant dance, the villain spins the bullets around him. Stopping with a serious look, he makes a gesture, and all the bullets hit the guards. Striking a pose of gratitude, he bows. Now instructing his gang, he says there are 14 minutes left and that they must quickly find the object they are looking for. Staying alert, he hears someone say to be careful. The villain shows a look of shock upon realizing a bullet just a few centimeters from his face. At this moment, we see the protagonist and his 2 allies entering the scene in full style. The blonde sniper says that the intelligence service was wrong and there seemed to be 2 more ability users than they calculated. After asking to play alone with our heroes, the boss replies not to take too long and the sniper says he understood. Gathering a great amount of power, the sniper declares the switch to explosive ammunition and loads his weapon. The silver-haired man asks who these people are. Laughing, the villain boss says he assumes the silver-haired man is the person in charge of the place. The villain says he will introduce himself and that his name is John West, affiliated with the mercenary corporation Rose Waltz. Worried, the silver-haired man thinks about the name of the mercenary corporation. Our hero thinks in surprise that there is no mention of these mercenaries in the novel and that they probably won't be a famous group in the future. At this moment, the silver-haired man asks who sent them. The villain says that as a professional mercenary, he can't reveal information about his client, and that if he wants to know, he should go to hell and ask the devil. While staring at the villains, the hero's group is surprised by a shot from behind. The protagonist's partner shouts, warning that there's a sniper there. With an incredible move, he quickly draws his gun and fires at the enemy's bullet, deflecting its trajectory. At this moment, we see the 2 shooting at each other again. With atomic precision, several bullets ricochet, and there is a series of explosions. The sniper villain laughs, saying this is exactly what he expected, and that he wants even more. With an evil smile and holding a special bullet, he challenges the protagonist's friend to withstand it this time. We see the bullet fired, traveling covered by a massive amount of energy. The hero's partner realizes that this bullet is different from the previous ones. Preparing his weapon, he fires, exclaiming that this is his 5th shot. After firing a powerful bullet, we see an explosion with a large amount of smoke. The villain boss says to Josh that he has finally found a worthy opponent. Our blonde guy says that the opponent is an extremely strong sniper and that maybe they should. Not letting his friend finish the sentence, the protagonist exclaims that the opponent is dangerous and in an unknown location. With a serious look, he says they are in a difficult situation and their chance of victory is almost 0. Using an advanced war technique, he commands his friends to flee. Breaking the wall with a flying kick, the hero and the 3 of them escape desperately. The villain boss praises the smart move and the sniper says he has them in his sights. While aiming at our guy's group, he receives the order to focus on the main mission and is denied. Rumbling unhappily, he complains that he can't continue the fight after finding a worthy opponent. Breathing heavily, the protagonist tells his group that this place should be safe for now. He apologizes to the silver-haired man, saying there was no choice but to flee in this situation. And the other surprises him by agreeing with the hero's decision but points out that he underestimated the special agents of his country. Taking the phone from the device on his leg, the silver-haired man calls someone. With a serious face, he says to notify the special forces of ability users and that they must act immediately. Calmly, after the call, he lights a cigarette. In great style, he orders the hero and his group to leave now. The protagonist in his thoughts questions the existence of special forces of ability users. Then we see a scene inside the building where the villain and all his henchmen are immobilized by the special forces. The boss, completely enraged, wonders why his abilities failed. Screaming in anger, He calls the guards monsters. At this moment, the guard helps our friend get a closer look at the floor. With a sarcastic tone, he repeats the villain's words and says with a look of disdain that the only ones who should be called monsters are the villain and his gang. His subordinate informs that they couldn't catch the sniper because he was too cunning. The chief of the special agents says he's just a scared rat running away. While being restrained, the villain complains that this couldn't be happening because he was chosen by the gods and has the talent of a genius. As he is escorted to prison, he keeps repeating the same words, screaming. The silver-haired man arrives with the protagonist and his friend, telling the special agent that he never disappoints. Our boy is introduced to the special agent by the silver-haired man, saying his name is Black Panther. He informs that the agent holds a very special position within the ability user forces, being the captain of the 4th District. The hero thinks back to the past and remembers that this is the Black Panther. He recalls that this was the strongest person in the silver-haired man's mercenary team and that they fought together until the end. With a laugh, the agent offers a cigarette to the young men. Feeling awkward, the two politely refuse. Blowing out cigarette smoke enthusiastically, he asks if the protagonist knows him. Our hero says that this is the first time he has met him. In his thoughts, he wonders what kind of monstrous people surround the silver-haired man. Throwing the cigarette on the ground, he steps on it to put it out and says goodbye.